Welcome back to the Pixelists Podcast, my friends, the podcast about all the nerdy things we love and enjoy. As always, we're your hosts. That's Blake. I'm Will. And today we're here to talk a little Worlds Beyond Number, the Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One. But before we dive in, you guys know the drill. Little coffee talk, little announcement time. But first and foremost, how are you doing today, my friend, on this Monday? A little bit of a dreary Monday at that.
Very cold.
Yeah.
Very cold, just like my heart.
Yep.
Yep.
It is, man. And you just mentioned that we might get some snow this week, so I guess it's just going to get colder, in fact.
Yeah, and you guys listening, you can know Arkansas snow is never. It's if you live like in the Northeast, it's never really. We're talking like a dusting.
Yeah.
But yet people tend to, lose their.
People freak out.
People tend to lose their cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, I told Will I already got a text from someone being like, "Are we meeting tomorrow?" And there's not even snow tomorrow, but people are nervous. So
They are. Well,
how
we
are
did.
you, man?
I'm good, man. Not important. The brief thought was that the most recent snow we got, though, still wasn't substantial, but it was a nice little.
That one was a lot for us.
Yeah,
because we got like 6 inches here. Like that's not even guaranteed every year. It's going to be every couple of years. But that was a good one. That was a good
fun.
snow.
That was fun.
I wish it had lasted longer.
Yeah,
because it gives you just, especially with my kids, I had such like a narrow window to actually play with them, and it's easier if you have like a few days to
for sure.
Spread it out.
So. But yeah, I'm good. A little bit of the Mondays look big, not like a case of the Mondays, not a full blown case of the Mondays, but a little bit of that Monday vibe today that I've just been working through. But
I'm with you.
I can't complain.
We're also in our post C3 era.
Yeah,
as well.
I think that's contributing to it for sure. It's been a bit of a just damper ever since.
Yeah, but so for our listeners, if you don't watch Critical Role, which I know plenty of people don't, their long 3-year campaign just ended on Thursday.
Yep.
So maybe this is the start of my Dimension 20 era. I don't know. I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. I mean, well, we actually have fresh Critical Role this week. They've got a new miniseries that Brennan Lee Mulligan, for my Worlds Beyond Number people out there, is going to be DMing. So if you are one of those people that is Worlds Beyond and not Critical Role, could be a good thing to come check out, see if it interests you.
I will say with Calamity, I had a couple of friends actually who Calamity was the first time they watched any CR content because of Brennan.
Yeah.
And then what's funny for me is on the flip side, Brennan was DMing that, and I was like, "Who's this guy? Who's this guy? Who's he? Is this guy a good DM? Who is this guy?"
Yeah.
And then, naturally, I was like, "I love you."
Oh, yeah. So yeah, I'm actually really excited for that.
Yeah, I think the post C3 won't really truly hit until after this miniseries, like when we're actually in like our content break.
Yeah. Agreed. Especially because it's not like connected to C3, but it kind of is. Like it kind of is connected to this overarching story that's being told. So yeah, I agree with you.
And not to mention, we got Worlds Beyond Number coming to an end. We don't have a definitive date, but you have to imagine we're getting there.
Yeah. That's going to suck, man. I mean, I know Worlds Beyond Number is going to continue with a new campaign. Critical Role is going to continue, but like definitely the end of 2 eras coming a little bit too close at the same time for my liking. Like, let me process, let me have something to keep me going. And now they said, no, both of these are going away.
At least the real world is defined by stability and, only good things to keep us occupied until the next campaign.
Stop taking my distractions. But yeah, so lot happening in the world of Pixelists things. A lot of things ending.
Do you see these people talking about what to call themselves in our Discord?
Yeah, I
just
thought we were all Pixelists.
We're not going to say all of them because someone was really pushing a certain one. But we definitely started with like the, we're the Pixelists and we're all Pixelists.
Yeah.
But it seems like the Pixelists have ripped the channel from us
Mm.
and have now demanded a sub name.
Yeah. So you guys have to let us know if you got any ideas. I don't know. I need to go back through that thread and see if any of them stood out to me.
Yeah, there's quite a few that I liked. Oh, I just clicked. Oh no, I just clicked on the meme and it's on my recording.
Nice.
Oh, there it is. Anyway, yeah. Well, I guess having said that, we should probably jump into this episode unless you have any other announcements.
No, I think that's it. We'll be doing a watch party for
Divergence.
Yeah, the Calamity Divergence this Thursday. But I think that's the only other main thing. And then I will say that never mind. Sorry for the weird tease, but never mind.
That's on brand for us. That's
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. But no, yeah, I'm ready to kick things off if you are, my friend.
Yeah. Well, without further ado, let's jump into our recap. And as always, you can always click the link below for our full thoughts and discussion on the episode. But this was episode 41 of The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One. I think this was called Peace and Comfort?
Peace and Quiet, I think.
Peace and Quiet. Peace and Quiet. Yep. And this episode opens up with the party beginning to navigate through Halakar Forest. Now, if you recall, in the previous episode, they had met a hovel of a few people and decided to take a wide berth around them and pretend like it was abandoned. And so Suvi is actually going to meet up with Ame and purposely try to work with Ame to make it look like she's hurt her hand or gotten something poisoned from one of the supposed traps. This is successful. She shows it to Silver and to Stone as well. Is it Stone? Wait, that's her dad.
Sworn.
Sworn, thank you.
Yeah.
And for the most part, they're like, oh gosh, yeah, that looks like, it was a trap.
Yeah.
So it seems like this ruse to the rest of the group passes on successfully, and they do seem to believe that, okay, this was some abandoned, trapped place. Though we get an interesting comment from Sworn, who, being the more strategic one, says something like, oh, well, I guess this does confirm that the Greneaux were working with our enemies, which I do wonder if Brennan is going to bring that back in some way down the road. Anyway, navigating through Halakar Forest, Ursulon is basically tasked with guiding them since he is a spirit in a spiritual forest. And Brennan basically says, based on your role, that will determine how well you navigate through this. He gets guidance from Ame in this very cool moment where she pulls down like this giant pine cone and gifts it to him, which I always like when players put some flair behind their guidance. And ultimately, I think he rolled like a 20-something. He beat the highest roll he needed to navigate through Halakar successfully. He does so. He also looks at his watch in doing this. And if you recall, the watch has a second, like a hidden hand to it that tracks spirits. And it seems to point directly south towards Bracken. So he feels reassured that they're likely heading the right direction. He's doing what he should be doing. Also, the soldiers around him, as they camp and rest and make their way through this forest, he also notices that the soldiers around them, that though they seem to despise him previously, there is sort of like this unspoken admiration through the camp of people realizing that this spirit has miraculously guided them through the forest safely. They eventually make their way to the edge of Halakar Forest, where as they pass out into like this open field, an airship appears from above. And this is an Imperial airship that's sort of like guarding the edge of the forest. Some wizards come down. One of them identifies themselves as Castwain and basically says, greetings to Suvi, Ame. Ursulon chooses to hide in the forest, almost in like this moment of like deciding if he wants to go forward or not. And basically pleasantries are exchanged, and Suvi says, hey, we've come from Absinthe, we're heading to Bracken, and this ship commander, Castwain, is very impressed by the fact that they've made it through here and done so safely. She sends them on their way. they make their way down the road into finally Bracken, and Brennan describes this as a large, beautiful city, one of the largest cities they've been in some time. And they are basically celebrated and welcomed, and there's cheering and drinks. And Brennan even points out this one wizard who he describes as if Merlin went to prison. And this is the wizard Slain, which is not ominous at all.
Yeah.
But most important note is one particular figure, the Prince Amari Ulfgang Siraz of the Siraz Imperium, who is stationed here and is this very charismatic, suave, about as ego-driven as you would expect a prince to be, and welcomes the troop, and everyone kind of, does like the 3 cheers for, yay, they've made it here. Sends Suvi on to go to a speaking mirror because Steele wants to speak to her. Meanwhile, Ursulon and Aamir are kind of doing their own thing. Ursulon meets Zero, who is the counterspell Temuri, who is surprised that he is not a Temuri himself. But yeah, why don't you take the second half there?
Yes, sir. So, everyone's kind of celebrating and happy that they've arrived in Bracken. Like Blake mentioned, a few of the Temuri start to take an interest in Ursulon. And but before we get to that, there is a quick moment with Ame where she wants to perform an insight check on the prince to kind of get, just the lowdown on what type of dude this guy is. And she rolls pretty high, if I recall. And Brennan just describes that she can tell that he is engaged in performance and he's very good at it. So this guy is like, just not to say that he's just like full of it, but like he's definitely playing the role of a prince, and he's very charismatic and just is excellent at that role that he finds himself in. So we then, I can't remember if it's Ursulon or if it's Ame who like actually notices this, but we then our attention is brought to more Temuri that are in this area. One is a 12-foot glassy minotaur that's mostly translucent, and the other is like this beautiful Temuri woman who is like somewhat glowing. And the woman specifically is shadowing the prince at all times. So we don't know what spell she is specifically, but whatever her role is requires her to be like within arm's reach of him at all points. But we see this minotaur walk up to Ursulon and Zero and the minotaur says like, is this Zero bothering you? And Ursulon's like, no. But then the minotaur like takes another look at Ursulon and casts detect magic on him. And he introduces himself as Ox, and we know that he is the True Sight spell. And Ox is basically fascinated with Ursulon and wants to know where he got all of his magical items that he has. He kind of even presses Ursulon on it, being like, what are the addresses of the people that you got these from? But then Ame kind of walks up and Ox turns to her and casts detect magic on her and also wants to know where she got her magical items. And at this point, we have Lady Araman walk over and is like, hey, Ox, go tend to the king. She doesn't say this out loud, but basically like, stop bothering these people. And tells him to go on his way. So it's at this point that since Suvi is going to the speaking mirror, Ame and Ursulon decide that they will go to the beer garden to get a drink and just pass the time. And Sworn actually challenges Ursulon to a drinking contest. So they head off in that direction. And we cut to Suvi, who has been led to the speaking mirror by Lady Araman. And she gets to the mirror. Steele is in the mirror, basically waiting for her. And the conversation begins with Steele kind of just recounting all of the events since they last spoke and being like, you took a ship to a not part of the mission protocol. You went to this place, and then your ship left you and you were supposed to stay stationed in that base, but then you'd left that base to go on a crazy rescue mission. And the conversation very much started in like a chastising way, but ultimately ends up in a celebratory way, saying that like, I cannot believe you actually successfully saved all of these soldiers that we had deemed impossible to save at this point. Like, Suvi, you really are something. Well done. Both on the mission, the original mission with the Witches Coven, and the rescue mission. Steele says, I want the full download at some point, but we'll need to do that in person for privacy's sake. And I'm actually going to come to Bracken in a few days if you'll still be there for a while. And Suvi responds to that and says, sarcastically, yeah, and be sure to give my best to Rasper and thank him for completing the mission. Rasper being the one who basically abandoned her to go turn the music box back in. And Steele says she would love to do that, but to do that would require Rasper to be welcome in the Citadel. So he perhaps got punished for the way he abandoned Suvi. Steele does want to have the one-on-one in person about all of this, but she does ask one thing, and she brings up, hey, Suvi, about the music box. I presume that it was damaged during the mission or something because the embossment... she doesn't say out loud, but she alludes to something being wrong or missing with part of the music box. And Suvi, of course, doesn't know anything about this, so this catches her off surprise. And Suvi's surprise at the question lets Steele know that, okay, you didn't know. Something is going on here. I'm going to have another conversation with Rasper. So something presumably happened to the spider that was part of the music box, and Suvi tries to see if she can remember, but doesn't really place it hard. And Steele just assumes that it was Rasper. So that's kind of where they're leaving it for now. Steele then asks about Ame and Ursulon. And she's like, I take it they're with you again. And Suvi's like, yeah. And Steele says, well, last time they were in the Citadel, they kind of committed some crimes. And Suvi's like, yeah, but also thanks to them, it's thanks to them that we were able to be successful in both of these missions. So can we just kind of call that a wash? And Steele's like, yeah, I hear you. But we need to kind of talk. And it's at this point that a telemet is brought up, the thing that kind of lets you do long distance spells. So Suvi places her hand on it and Steele casts message so that, Suvi's the only one that can hear her at this point. And Steele basically says that, hey, stuff's really going down in the Shroud Mountains right now. 2 additional houses of Gauthmai have, launched incursions and are, having movements here. And we also know that Yorin is supposedly here as well. So, there is something critical happening there. And we could really use Ame's help. And her help will help save countless lives, in fact. And Suvi's like, yeah, I understand, but Ame has her own business. She has helped us plenty, and I cannot ask her and Ursulon to commit further time to the Citadel's cause. And Steele's like, totally understand that, but will you at least ask? And Suvi says, of course. And Steele says, great, I will see you in Bracken in a few days. We then cut back to the beer garden where Ursulon is destroying Sworn in their drinking contest. But then he casts lay on hands on Sworn, which basically sobers him up. So they start anew, drinking again. And then Ame, Ursulon, basically everybody noticed this new squadron arrived to Bracken. And there's a lot of excitement about soldiers returning home, people catching up. And 2 things are of import here that Ame and Ursulon notice. Ursulon notices that one of these people that's coming in is a guild mage that's dressed in all red and seems to be very, maybe celebrated isn't the right word, but seems to be important. And he's got an emblem with a glass crown on it. And Ame overhears a conversation about how the Archmage Silence recently appeared out in the battlefield where the guys are returning from. And what happened was Silence basically appeared in the sky, and then this monstrous, massive bullfrog emerged from the water, and Silence literally silenced it, and then basically took care of it, and then disappeared himself. And they were all like, "Oh, that's so crazy! Silence, he's so strong." And that's where the episode ends. Again, that is episode 41 of Worlds Beyond Number, Peace and Quiet. And if you just find yourself on our recap and you want to hear our full discussion of the episode, be sure to check the link in the description below. Bada boom.
Great job.
You too, my friend. You too.
It was funny as we were getting together for this episode. I was thinking, yeah, not a lot happened. But then as I was thinking through, and especially your half, I was like, oh, yeah, there were some pretty interesting implications.
Yeah.
On this.
Yeah, really not much happened, but there were a couple of, interesting reveals. Which I know we're
Trying
not like on a hard stop here, but I know we don't have the most time today. So I was just gonna
right.
maybe
Yes.
jump into those things.
Yeah, and I'm just pulling up the Discord notes because I actually asked some questions in the Discord, and I want to get that in front of me too.
And
Okay.
also, because whoa, brain fart. Sorry. We weren't able to, we still did our recap of last episode, but I actually wasn't able to sit down for episode 40. So there's a couple things that even tie into this episode that I wanted to briefly go over as well.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, which this will tie into that final moment that I just described with silence, but in the previous episode, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding what happened there. So they go talk to this family, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this family, Grinnell, is that what they're called?
Yeah. Grinnell. They're like the frog people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, they there's like this, I don't know if, I guess worship is an appropriate term to use, but they like worship this frog spirit, and like some once in a generation or whatever the case may be, some of them are blessed with like
Yeah.
frog spirit-esque
Yeah.
abilities.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
They worship three spirits: the
right.
bullfrog, the I'm sorry guys, mistress of coins or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And then the king of night.
King of night, yeah.
Yeah.
And so the big kind of reveal that then led to the secrecy at the beginning of this episode, where Sui lied to Sworn and the Citadel people, basically, is that the Citadel had been coming around and taking their children and taking these frog spirit blessed kids. Is that correct?
Well, and it's right for you to be confused, because this was confusing elsewhere, and then it was clarified on the Fireside Chat. Yes, the Citadel began taking these blessed Grinnell, and then had been doing it so much that eventually, as Brennan put it, you could talk to anyone who would know someone who had disappeared, and then like the really incredible like punch of a line was, and then they began taking children. But yeah, the Citadel, yes, has been, and that's also why they had to lie to the soldiers, was so that the soldiers would know that there was a family here.
Okay. Yeah, I don't even remember why I was slightly confused, but I just remember 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. I mean, based on everyone's reaction, I knew what that meant, but I couldn't quite put the pieces together, because like when did this, like, is it, I guess it's just all tied to like all of the spirit stuff that we know the Citadel has been researching, and like I'm guessing that's the connection there.
I think Brennan's really hitting home. There is nothing redeemable about the Citadel, as Suvi clings to, her family, her upbringing. But I mean, they seem to be stealing kids, and now what they've heard in the final moments of this last episode is, it seems like Silence has maybe banished or bound the Great Bullfrog. I'm not totally certain.
Yeah. Well, one more thing before I touch on that moment too is, I guess the larger implication I'm wondering here is the abductions and all that stuff is not necessarily tied to the current war. It predates that. Is that correct?
Right. I think it's more related to their efforts to control the spirit world.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to make sure that that was correct. Which then that obviously largely informs why the Grinnell would be siding with Gauthmai, which was the
yes. And point of note is that this family was not sided with the Gauthmai,
right?
But had a cousin that was. But yeah, the Gauthmai have apparently told the Grinnell that, hey, we can help you get your kids back.
Okay, so yeah. So that horrifies everyone, which is why Suvi then lies, which I thought was really like kind of a big moment for her, especially that she just did that immediately. Like there was no like attempted conversation or even like consideration of then let me tell Sworn and see what he thinks. No, it was just immediately we have to lie to these people because even the ones I'm with might do something to this family. So I thought that was some like a growth moment for Suvi, and it hasn't really. Again, that was last episode. That wasn't really addressed this episode, but there wasn't really time for it, I guess. Because they just immediately go back to the soldiers where they obviously can't talk about it. So I'm interested to see that dissected a little bit more. And just like, what does this revelation mean to Suvi? You know, like,
yeah, I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think inevitably we're heading towards. I mean, we know in a future book, presumably the witches and Ruve will be attacking the Citadel.
Right.
It just seems like Suvi is going to have to make a decision at some point as the evidence continues to get stacked up. I mean, it's significant. So.
Yep. I wonder if I was about to say she didn't bring it up to Steele, but they weren't alone, so that's probably why she didn't. I'm curious if she'll bring it up if they get to meet in Bracken in a few days, or if she'll still kind of want to peruse it a little bit further on her own. Right. But then, okay, moving to the moment at the end here, the big stinger of Silence dealing with that bullfrog. You've already said now, but I was going to ask, do you think that is the spirit or is one of these gifted Grenault that like has those powers?
No, I think it's definitely the Great Spirit.
Okay.
It's too similar otherwise. I mean, it being a great bullfrog. I mean, I assume, you know, the real question is what has happened in this moment. And, you know, if Ame overhears this, you know, Ursulon hears about it.
Well, Ame did, right? Isn't she the one that heard that?
That's right. Ame is the one who did. But if Ursulon finds out about it, which presumably is also within earshot.
Yeah.
There's this interesting, because they're heading towards 12 Brooks, I think, which is where that happened. And notably, there was a one shot about 12 Brooks, which I didn't listen to.
Yeah, I haven't either.
That's not the first time we've seen 12 Brooks. But I wonder if these saviors of all these soldiers would potentially end up betraying the Empire and freeing the bullfrog. I mean, I don't know. This is a very interesting implication. So
yeah, we've been wondering like where this book will end, like, and so to me, if that is the Great Spirit, which I think that makes sense, that kind of feels like the climax and the mission here, like especially because of Ursulon's quest to free the subjugated spirits. Like that feels like an easy 1 + 1 = 2 to be like the main meat of what we have left in this chapter is like, let's go free that spirit, especially with the added like motivation of what we just learned about the Grenault and like, you know, the emotions there. So Ame just overheard this. That's Ursulon's mission right now. Suvi is kind of motivated as well. Like, so maybe that's the mission we go on and that's how this chapter ends, but I don't know.
Well, we also have Yoren, who...
True.
I know we've kind of like forced the what's going on with Steele angle, but I love there was a direct question of Suvi of like, is there a reason Yoren got mentioned there? And Brennan basically being like, not she's manipulating you, obviously, but just like she intentionally is using name dropping Yoren to like get buy-in from you is pretty much what Brennan said.
Yeah.
Which this is probably the most overt use of that thus far, but that could also be another final destination of this book is encountering Yoren or something.
True.
And maybe in the same spot. It could be
because he's
they go to free. They're going to free the Great Bullfrog. Yoren's there doing the same. And as chaos erupts, it's very much, you know, come with me if you want to live.
Yeah.
And they leave with Yoren. I don't know.
Yeah. That's a great point. That would be a really interesting cliffhanger as well. So I could definitely see that happening. That moment with Yoren obviously stuck out to me as well, but I do feel like Brennan positioned it in such a way that it like because he went on to say that, like, yeah, she said that because of you, Suvi, but also because of, like, that's really important to her, Steel.
Right.
Like, even if it's maybe not the highest priority for the Citadel to deal with Yoren, it is for her, framing that in such a way that, like, because that is such a personal betrayal to her. Like,
Right.
again,
That's right.
no value judgment on whether or not Steel is we won't get into that.
But we know.
But it could go either way, right? It could be that it was like a pure manipulation of Suvi, or it could be that, like, that's a personal vendetta that Steel has. That
Okay, yeah. I didn't catch that other subtext, but that actually makes a lot of sense. So I could redeem Steel in my mind by
yeah. So
following it
it
that
could
way.
still go either way. I feel like.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, Rocco.
yeah, Rocco. So yeah. Anything other on that moment, the bullfrog and the
No, I mean, I just think it's a cool detail that the archmages themselves are like directly in this conflict.
yeah.
And just also like the scope is just growing. The mention of the two other houses that had joined the combat. It's
Yeah.
like, dude, this might get kind of insane. Like the finale of this chapter and this book.
Yeah. And I wonder what is in the Shroud Mountains that what's so important here.
Yeah. Well, I
You
mean,
know?
that's where Gauthmai had first attacked the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's just defending home turf, but that is a good point. Like, what is of the strategic importance of the Shroud Mountains?
Yeah. And even, like, why is Gauthmai interested in it, even, like,
Right.
and I mean, maybe it's because that those three spirits, I mean, I guess just because they're worshipped in this region doesn't necessarily mean they're, like, from there. I don't even know how that would work, because, like, they're from the spirit realm.
Yeah, but you make an interesting point of like maybe this being a spiritual place, maybe that's why the Gauthmai chose this place.
Yeah.
Was knowing it was kind of like a foothold for the Empire of like their research, for lack of a better phrase. But I mean, are we full blown like the Citadel are evil, right? Like, is there any redeemable aspect of them thus far?
I mean, I think yes. I just think it's not black and white, right? Like, I think I
I
don't
feel like
know.
it's pretty.
In this respect, like, in what they're doing to the spirits, no, like, that's messed up. But, like, the Citadel as a whole, like, humans as a whole, and not, maybe I shouldn't say humans, but I don't know.
Well, let's talk about a small detail, just briefly, a small detail. The person in red robes.
Yeah.
And I asked about this in the Discord because I couldn't remember it. And this person has the, I think maybe it was a tattoo. I can't remember, but this is a member of the Glass Coronet. And as I was reminded in the Discord, when Suvi was given a report by Yulia as to any sightings on Ghost, Yulia reported that Ghost had been seen in Cairo, and a member of the Glass Coronet reported on this or met with Ghost. I'm not really sure, but that was the wizard Cutlass who was reporting this basically, I guess, to Yulia. I don't remember when this report happened, by the way. I was like, when did Ghost end up in Cairo? Like, I think I missed that detail, but I do wonder the implication there of why Brennan's dangling that detail.
Yeah, I don't know. Do we know anything else about the Glass Coronet?
I don't know. As you were talking, I was looking at the wiki, which isn't,
Yeah, not the most.
Let's see here. Okay, let's see here. Glass Coronet. No. Only that it's. Oh, interesting. Wizards of the Imperial Crown are also called guild mages, and they are organized into guilds, and each guild has its own area of specialization. The Scepter's Chorus from Port Talon
Right.
is a guild that works directly for the Saraz Imperium, and they are magical engineers. They do large practical projects that are of interest to the crown that aren't necessarily military in nature. And then there's also the Glass Coronet, which its specialization is unknown, but presumably has something to do with artificing. So interesting. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then Ghost had like a special affinity for something. Was it like disenchanting things, or?
I think it was something like that. I think it was like a dispelling, disenchanting situation.
Okay, yeah. Because I think she was like an artificer or something.
She had like the wax golem too, right?
Yeah, right. All right, well.
I do maybe that was more of a tease of something that we're gonna find out, as opposed to like a flag of something that was supposed to click something for us. But y'all let me know, let us know in the comments if you gleaned something deeper from that. But clearly important for some reason.
What did you make of the prince?
I thought it was interesting. I liked the character. Kind of like a wheeler and dealer in this political scene. I think the easy thing is to wonder, like, is this dude like a psychopath behind the mask or whatever?
I'm already there.
So yeah, I'm somebody that's good at playing the game is dangerous for sure. So
yeah.
And I also just made me wonder about, like, we've known about this royal family and heard about the Saraz Imperium for forever, but we haven't really met any of them. So like, how in the know is this guy? Like, is he privy to all the messed up things the Citadel is doing, or are those branches kind of separate? I guess I just want to know, like, what he wants. What are his aims?
It would be cool, like, in the break after this book, to get like a bigger breakdown on like the lore behind it. Cause I do wonder, like, is this guy a prince in the sense of like, there are 17 princes of the Saraz Imperium? Or is this like, there's the king and then bam, this dude?
Yeah, like next in line.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I loved Brennan's line with Ame's insight check, where he said, like, when you're observing a dance, if you are trying to decide if it's true or false, you've missed the point.
Yeah.
And like sometimes Brennan says stuff that I'm like, I'm too dumb to fully get this, other than just knowing, man, that's a good line.
Like, oh yeah, that was insightful.
Yeah,
for sure.
He's got some bangers for sure.
100%. It's like 2 an episode at least, it feels like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to know. I'm very, very interested in him specifically. I want to know more about him, especially because, well, never mind. But yeah, what's his name again? It was crazy.
Prince. I closed my notes, but Prince Amari Wolfgang Saraz.
Yeah, nice memory there.
Very Percy-esque.
Yeah.
So,
and okay, one other thing. The other big thing that I wanted to touch on is this moment with the music box and the spider.
Yeah.
I thought.
Yeah. Part of me wondered if Suvi was telegraphing that she had the spider and didn't realize it, and like was now discovering this in the moment. Because like her and the spider had like a little, fist bump. It seemed like there was a moment between them.
Yeah, 100%. I don't remember it explicitly, but what I remember is that like there was a really high roll, and it was like a natural evolution of the magic. Because I remember Brennan describing like this thing that thousands upon thousands of man hours were put into for this one purpose. Like, it just did something it wasn't designed to do because you asked it to or whatever. So that was the moment. But then from what I recall, it crawled up back in the box. Like, there wasn't an explicit moment of like it not going in the box and staying with Suvi. Like, maybe that happened off screen.
Yeah. Well, that's why I wondered, though, did Brennan do something clever here where the spider like, tucked along with her?
Yeah.
I think that would be an interesting data point. Though I guess Rasper just taking it is also an option. Also, the implication about he's not welcome in the Citadel, I couldn't tell if this was because he had been punished, or we know he doesn't work for the Citadel. He's part of the Siraz Imperium. So I wonder, there's like that weird energy between the Citadel and the rest of the Imperium. I part of me also wondered if it was like that, of like, you're a guild mage, you're part of the Imperium, you're not welcome here. Or if like literally he had been, like, I was trying to figure that out too, of like, has he been, like, what's going on here? Has he been punished? Like, what's happening?
Yeah, I wouldn't be inclined to think it was the latter, just in the way that news was delivered and the way that Suvi reacted to it.
Yeah.
Like,
And I mean, he did abandon an Archmage apprentice
yeah,
behind enemy lines. So
yeah, yeah, totally. And so I felt like that, like Steele was kind of chastising him for that, but I am still curious about exactly how that went down, because like, for all intents and purposes, he did what was right as far as the Citadel is concerned, right? Like, that music box needed to get back. But maybe it's a situation where, like, yeah, you did what we wanted you to do, but we still have to punish you for abandoning a high class mage or whatever.
I need to go back and listen to it, because in the post Coven episode, when he's asking for the music box, he says a line, something to the effect of like, my job, like your job was the Coven, my job is the music box.
Yeah.
And I need to go back and listen to it, because I can't, the way he phrased it is what like originally planted that allegiance thing in my mind of like, oh, he's here on behalf of the Imperium. But I need to go back and try to remember the details, because I don't think he actually lives in the Citadel anyway. But maybe he does. I don't know.
That I'm not sure. But yeah, regarding the spider, like, so if something weird's happening with the spider because of Suvi, then Rasper wasn't involved, right? But if it was Rasper, what does that even mean? Like, because one, he couldn't have known that like something specifically weird had happened with the spider, and it's such like high level magic that I don't know if he would like have been able to glean that. But even if he had, what purpose? Like, who is he taking that to now? Like, if not,
Well, I think it works. I think the interesting relationship between the Citadel and the Imperium, I think it exists in both scenarios, because in this other scenario, he inspected the music box, discovered the spider, took it, delivered the music box to the Citadel, and either took it for his own endeavors or is taking it back to the Imperium because of all of the, magical marvel that's gone into creating it. I don't know which one, but unfortunately, I think it's a breadcrumb we're not going to get. We're not going to get an answer on anytime soon, I don't think. But interestingly, we are back to our "don't go anywhere, I'll be there in 2 days."
yeah, yeah,
Plot line. So, which we know they're not going to be there. So,
yeah. I was thinking about that. Do you think they will be? Because we now have this potential bullfrog rescue mission that, even if
I think
Suvi
they're.
wants to stay, well, Ursulon and Ame probably won't just sit there for 3 days.
Yeah, I think they're going to 12 Brooks for this bullfrog. I think is my presumption.
Well, I guess we don't even know what happened to it, right? Because like it just vanished. Isn't that what was described?
Right.
And not that there's any point in like trying to glean what that could mean, but like it could be like the same thing that happened to the Rock, which was just like a banishment spell.
Right.
So like maybe they don't. Well, I was gonna say maybe he just banished him and like, he's on the spirit plane. But considering the Citadel's interest in great spirits, they probably wanted to capture him and not just clear him from the battlefield.
Right.
And wait, is Silence Suvi's Archmage?
I think so, actually. Let's see.
Like the head honcho?
Yeah, I think so. Let's see here.
I think he is too, but then I just remembered that like he's always been described as ancient and sleeping. So it's interesting that, he does still got it.
Yeah. Suvi is his apprentice. That's right. Yeah. Something else, since you weren't part of the recap before, but I was just gonna say it'd be interesting if Silver decides to go with them. And I thought it was interesting too. We did get Silver's true name,
right?
And then also this we didn't talk about this, but it's very creepy. The greatest joy in my life would be to die for the Imperium or the Citadel. And Suvi's like, "Ooh, hold on, buddy." But all this to say, I wonder, with like rumors of battle at 12 Brooks, I wonder if Silver would be like, "Yeah, let's go. Like, it's my duty to go fight some more."
Okay, so you're saying that like he might just kind of coincidentally come along, not that they would rope him into their mission.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, because I could see that happening, and not that these things are predetermined and that like Brennan's cruising towards a specific plot point, because I don't think that's the case. But I do think a very interesting plot point would be a wedge driven between Suvi and Silver. Like Suvi finally kind of comes to the Ame and Ursulon side of things, but like Silver absolutely would not. I think that would be like an interesting thing to navigate.
I don't know. I think Suvi's also a bit interested in the prince too. She seemed a little smitten.
You think so?
I think a little crush, not like legitimately. But
I mean, hey, who doesn't get a little crush on an attractive royal that's charismatic?
Yeah.
Looking
at my notes though, I think that was the only other thing I wanted to mention. Let's see here.
Let me scope really quick, but yeah, I know the spider and the bullfrog were the main two things I wanted to touch on. Assuming that Rasper did take the spider and it was for the marvel of it or whatever, like I can't imagine that like one he thinks he would get away with that. Like, here's half of the thing I was supposed to deliver. Like, that's very, very bold. And two, like, why the spider and not the rest of the music box, Like, why that element specifically?
Maybe hoping that the detail of the embossment would be subtle enough.
Like, he thought he could get away with that. Like,
I mean, the spider is like the mechanism of how it works, but what they actually wanted was the knowledge, which he delivered.
Right.
So maybe hoping like, oh, it got destroyed or something.
Yeah, kind of like just skimming off the top. They won't notice,
I think Suvi broke it or something. Like
so all that is certainly possible to me, but it makes me think that something else happened and it wasn't Rasper.
Yeah,
because he seems very much like a company man. Like he's just trying to get his, like, he doesn't seem like the type that's going to be taking like a crazy risk like that. So if that is the case, then what did happen to it? Like, is it stowed away with Suvi? I'm very curious.
Yeah. Good question.
But yeah, I think that's what I wanted to hit on as well.
All right. Well, you all don't forget to join the Discord. We always need more Worlds Beyond chitter chatters in there. And other than that, we'll have the latest episode tomorrow. We'll have Critical Role at some point this week. We'll have our Friday stream. I think that'll do it.
That'll do.
My
friends, thank you for tuning in as always, and we will see you soon.